All right, we're live now. So,
Right.
hi everybody, and I'm sure it'll, for those of you that will be coming in later, I might make this introduction again, but you guys probably know me. This is on the Revive page right now. I'm Dr. Bulow with Revive Upper Cervical. This is Miss Rita Singer, right, with
Yes.
Red Dietitians,
That's
and we're starting these videos to do probably every Thursday morning, but on a regular basis we want to provide you with great information and resources with other providers in the area in Western PA and the greater Pittsburgh area. And Rita's someone that I met when I first opened up in like 2008, 2010, like somewhere in that time frame. Different location, seems like a different world ago, but our practices have both just kind of been growing and evolving in the North Hills of Pittsburgh here. And Rita's been doing speaking engagements all over the East Coast and things like that, and I teach the work that I do, and just we've kind of been meaning to reconnect for a while. And the main reason in my clinic is that what I do is very specialized, and it's kind of like professional boundaries. I'm a fan of professional boundaries. I don't really love jack of all trade, that idea. So I'm trying now to really purposely understand more about what it is that you do on a clinical level. And I figured, well, I could talk to Rita in private and learn about all this stuff, but why not share it with you guys, right? And then what's cool about it is you can ask questions, whether it's live or after the fact, and Rita and I, I'm sure, can connect with you and answer those questions. And so I will let Rita introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her practice. And we might be chatting to each other, we might be chatting with you, but we want you to get the information either way. So why don't you just share a little bit about what got you into your practice and where it's located, a little bit about it.
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
Cool, yeah.
I am Rita Singer. I'm a registered dietitian. My practice is in Warrendale. It's just right near Wexford, the north of Pittsburgh. I've been in practice for about 12 years, which is hard to believe. But yeah, my practice has really evolved. I have a focus on helping clients find a realistic approach to weight loss, weight management, disease prevention. And the key part is disease prevention. And an area that I really do specialize in is gut health, because so much disease begins in the gut. And so if we really focus on trying to get that gut healthy, considering that 70% of your immune system is in your gut, it just helps us to stay healthy. It can affect virtually every aspect of our body, whether it be your brain or your stomach, or even inflammation. You can feel the inflammation. Sometimes you don't feel inflammation, and it is occurring in your body. So we try to get some of those things under control, and we do that a lot through food sensitivity testing. But not everybody needs food sensitivity testing. It is a great test just to rule out is something that you're eating making you sick and you're not realizing it.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, exactly.
My basic description of nutrition for folks is just, it's like if you had a car and you put orange juice in the gas tank, it ain't going to work right. You know what I mean? And what I've been learning, and maybe you can speak to this because this is just the journey Christina and I and my family has been on, is we've been trying to pull out those triggers of inflammation. And I can't remember where I was going to go with that actually, but I will tell you, I can totally appreciate that feeling of just bloatedness. You know what I mean? And just, and the brain fog. Like when people have, that's what I was going to say. With the gas tank, here's what I've been learning. I'm just curious what your thoughts are. In the last, it seems like in the last so many years, 50 years, 60 years, something like that, there's been this war on fat and how everything's got to be low fat because fat's bad for you and it causes heart disease and all that. And then when you take the fat away, all of a sudden food tastes like garbage, so then we just supplement it with sugar and artificial sweeteners
and chemicals.
Yeah,
absolutely. And
so like whenever we're having these foods that have been just enriched with sugars and
altered.
And altered, I personally feel I get headachy, I get brain foggy, my stomach gets bloated, like I'm gaining weight, like I just don't feel very good. And lo and behold, if we go back to the basics where it's like, oh, that big giant steak with all that gristle is actually not bad. It's the Coke next to the steak that's really killing me. You know what I mean? Like
you are speaking my language. I literally just gave a presentation on this at 7 a.m.
Are you serious?
Yeah, to a variety of to some policemen actually.
Oh wow!
So
cool.
It's very interesting how 30 years ago, 35 years ago, we were warned of the negative effects of fat.
Mm-hmm.
So manufacturers obviously caught on to this and started taking out the fat and replacing it with the sugars, with chemicals, with preservatives. And that was meant to help decrease disease. Well, look at us 30 years later. We have not gotten healthier.
Yeah.
So there's a huge effort to try to push fat and cut back on the sugar. So it is indeed the sugar that makes us fat, not the fat necessarily.
That's
But if
crazy.
you combine the sugar and the fat together, that's what's very devastating on the body. And I mean by like eating a Snickers bar or something that is like a huge chocolate bar, something that you're getting that not so healthy fat with the sugar, that's the problem.
Gotcha.
So cutting back on sugars is huge. I mean, in reality, we're really supposed to have no more than about 6 to 8 teaspoons, which is about 24 to 32 grams per day.
Per day?
Of added sugar. In one 12-ounce soda, you get 10 teaspoons.
That's nuts.
40 grams. So you've already exceeded that just by one drink.
Yeah.
So basically, I really focus on not fearing the fat and increasing fat, but it's got to be the healthy forms of fat. We want to focus on good quality stuff like avocados, almonds, olive oil.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of us know these things, but a big step is look at the food that you're eating. It is about getting back to basics. If you pick up a label or a food and you look at the label and half of the ingredients you can't pronounce, shouldn't be in your body either.
Yeah.
So getting back to basics means you can read. It comes from the earth, not from a laboratory.
Someone once told me shop on the outside of the grocery store.
Absolutely.
That's where, you know, if it has a shelf life, it's probably not healthy.
Exactly.
You know?
If it spoils, then that's a good thing. You want food to spoil because it should.
It should. It's actually food. It's alive. You know.
Exactly. So
and maybe that's a good thing to kind of move into here is like, what would you recommend would be a first step for someone who says, okay, that sounds good. And by the way, I have to say something. You said something earlier about like disease prevention. And I have to say this, and it may or may not resonate with some people watching, but like disease prevention is not always the most like sexy topic. You know what I mean? Like everybody engages in healthcare when they're sick because pain is very motivating. Like I got a heart attack, I need to change my life. I got diagnosed with cancer, I need to change my life. I got a ruptured disc, I need to change my life.
Right.
But if you just got out of the car accident or you just got out of the fast food chain, you feel okay and you're like, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll do it later or whatever. One of my mentors once said that everybody does value their health. Nobody wants to grow old in like, with all due respect, and I'm trying not to make any judgments or anything, but nobody wants to grow old in like, you know, a retirement home hooked up to feeding tubes and really sick and decaying. Like nobody wants that.
Yeah.
But if we don't want that, we have to act on that now. It's not like that's an accident. These things happen by design most of the time. And again, try not to make judgments. We can't predict the future. But there are certain things that we can do now.
Sure.
And I will say, before we get into that, I have to give a personal plug to this. My wife and I have been doing basic level stuff, just basic little intermittent fasting, some cleanse program, little things to clean up our gut, clean up our diet. Nothing to the level I'm sure that you do, but I will tell you personally, just because I'm a chiropractor, most people assume that I'm real big into nutrition. And it's like, well, not really. My thing has always been neurology, philosophy, like, oh yeah, no, totally. Like, I'm not the fitness nutritional guru. That's not me. I'm all about brain health, philosophy, and maximizing your life experience, but I do it a different way. So for me, it was always something, well, I kind of knew how to do it. I mean, I eat right, I do these things. But man, I will tell you, since I've cut out like 99% of carbs in what our normal standard American diet is.
Processed carbs.
I don't do the processed stuff. Yeah, I'll still get my carbs through natural fruits and vegetables and things like that. But like we really started cutting back on a lot of like just generic pastas, breads, cakes, cookies. Like, oh man, of course, we don't have pop anymore. You know what used to be our vice was Turner's iced tea.
Oh.
Because that's like in Western PA, Turner's like that used to be our vice. Like Christina and I.
It's like a soda.
It was
just sugar. Sometimes more. Sometimes worse.
Yeah. But I will say though, just to give a testimony to the value of making changes now, even though you don't feel too bad, I will tell you it's made a huge difference. Like just energy levels, weight loss, that feeling of bloated. Like now I'm able to just kind of listen to my body, and if I feel just off or bloated, I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to cleanse today. You know what I mean? I'm just going to cleanse. I'm going to drink a lot of water. Obviously, I'm keeping myself in line chiropractically, but if I just, because that's the thing, I think there's fundamental keys that if we can just make sure those keys are taken care of, we should be fine.
We should be. And wellness is multidimensional. And I say this all the time. Nutrition, as biased as I am with nutrition being huge, it's not the only component. You have the chiropractic, you have stress management, mental health, physical health. All of those things tie together to form this integrative approach to wellness.
That's awesome.
And what you eat affects how you feel. How you feel can affect what you eat. And that's where I see it a lot with the brain fog, or somebody just is like, I can't remember anything. I feel just out of it all the time.
Yeah.
And then you look at the diet, and I'm like, all right, we just have to clean it up.
Yeah.
We want to clean it up. How would you like to, it's about prevention, but it's also about promotion, promoting that health, and being proactive about it.
So what is that first step then? I know I went off on the rails there a minute, so apologize.
It's
but
easy to do.
Yeah, but what can people do, like either on their own, or what can they do when they integrate with you? How do you manage, and like just what's the next step for someone who wants to either clean it up or maybe use that, and then even talk about someone who's got like some serious gut issues or health issues?
Absolutely. I mean, everybody is different where they want to start or where they're ready to be. But I think a first step is being mindful. And I know that term gets thrown around so much.
Sure. Yeah.
But the mindfulness act of just being aware of your current habits. So maybe you're not going to make a change quite yet, but if you can just be aware of maybe going to the grocery store, or if you're out to eat and you look at the menu and you think twice about what you're going to order. Because how often do you just go to the grocery store, to a restaurant, you just grab whatever you want?
Yeah, totally. What you're used to, just the habit.
Exactly. And mindfulness means, you know what, I'm just going to think for a second, how is this going to affect me? Maybe you still buy it, but it's a step in the right direction. So that is like a very, very first step. Yeah. But then I do think going to the grocery store and trying to pay attention to sticking to the perimeter, load up more on fruits and vegetables. And I know there's a lot of people who don't love fruits and vegetables, but it's experimenting. And if you as a kid didn't like a vegetable, you might actually like it now. Our taste buds change, and we hear that all the time. Your taste buds can change over the course of your lifetime several times. Even with your children, don't give up on them, just keep trying.
And I would say that like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think as a society we get desensitized to the flavors of food.
Sure.
My father-in-law is Italian, and one of the things he can't stand is the Americanized sauces, because they're so over jam-packed with just tons of spices and everything, and he's just kind of like, what is this, And there's beauty in the simplicity of things in life and in food.
Yep.
And so I think it probably takes time, but I think what most people will find is that when they start removing all the like super intense, chemicalized foods and desserts, that all of a sudden even a carrot is like, wow, carrots are pretty sweet. They actually have a sweetness to them. Like I never really realized that.
That is a great point. It is a great point, and it was interesting because my mom, we talk about food sensitivities, and I do food sensitivities, on hundreds of my clients, just again to rule out are foods making you sick. And there are a lot of things she reacted to that involved sugar, and she removed sugar from her diet, and she loved sugar. I always say she was addicted to sugar, but she realized how sweet a strawberry was after the fact.
And
it's the change in our taste buds, and taste buds do change just with a salt sensitivity. If you have to cut back on salt for whatever reason, you start to cut it back. It takes a couple weeks for your body to just kind of adjust. Sugar is the same way. Food is the same way. Give it a try. What is the worst that could happen?
And I'll say one other thing, going back to giving things a try and mindfulness. I was listening to Robin Sharma. We were talking about personal development leaders in the world, and Robin Sharma is one of mine. I think he's a great guy. And one of the things he talks about is how to change your willpower, right? If you say, I just can't do it, this, what Rita said was spot on, was willpower is like a muscle, right? And if you're mindful of the decisions you're making, then you're actually building that willpower muscle. So if you have a choice between this or this, and you say, I remember, I really did want to eat better, so I'm going to choose this healthier thing today, that'll make it easier the next time. You know what I mean? And make you stronger. And then one other thing, if you don't mind, I'll say, I finished a great book called The Power of Habit.
Yeah.
It's really good, really good. And it talked about how all habits, and this is definitely one of our eating habits, are probably like one of the biggest habits. All habits are like playing a movie track or playing an audio track where you'll have a stimulus, which might be, hey, I'm hungry, or a stimulus might be, hey, I smell that thing, or I see that, fast food logo, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's whatever the stimulus is. There's your habit that you do, and then there's the end result of that habit, the payoff, the satisfaction.
Sure.
So trying new things is actually the key to not eating those sugars, because you can't just stop. Like, you can, but that's hard. It's easier to substitute it with something else, either an exercise routine or a different food group, like we've done in our house. Case in point, we just got almonds in bulk, from, I don't know if it's Whole Foods or where it was, but we just have a jar on our kitchen counter now of almonds, and just snack on the almonds, because it's the healthy fats, but my point is, I think that has replaced snacking on chips or snacking on pretzels or sugar. It's other things.
And again, those are those mindless things that you just kind of grab because they're there. And going back to willpower, I think willpower is very important, but I sometimes tell people it's not necessarily just about willpower. It's about putting yourself in that position.
I mean,
so don't bring it into the home. Don't order it, because it's going to be harder for you to have that willpower.
That's how I am with my daughter, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. My daughter is pretty sensitive to not eating well. If she doesn't eat well, it shows physically. And I'm just getting to the point where I'm just throwing stuff out of the house, because if it's just not there,
you're not going to go for it.
Just remove the temptation.
I think cleaning things up is just huge, and that term clean eating is just, you hear it a lot more today. And some people, it just is still you just need to keep hearing it over and over.
So how would you define that? Because I've come to appreciate that term, and I really love the concept of clean eating. How would you define that as?
So for me, clean eating comes back to eating real food.
Real food.
Whole food. Their first rule, eat real food. Eat something that came from the earth and not from a laboratory. And so if you can flip over the container and there's one or two ingredients and they're actual foods, those are real foods. Those
and
are
the first,
full ingredients.
isn't it the first couple ingredients are the ones that are
the highest
concentration in that food?
Sure.
So it doesn't count if wheatgrass is at the very bottom, and then artificial corn syrup is at the very top.
Exactly.
That's not good.
No. And exactly, and artificial is one of those things that I would put back anyways. But with that being said, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not about perfection, it's about progression.
Say that again. That's so good.
It's not about perfection, it's about progression. So
man.
Nobody is perfect. I'm also human. You're human. Even though, I practice a lot of what I preach, and for me, some people are like, well, what about cheating? I don't call it cheating. I include it in my lifestyle. And I know that, it's what my lifestyle can support. If I wanted to have a small piece of candy on Halloween, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to deprive myself, but am I going to eat a whole bag or a whole jar? No. It's called being a human being. But you have to have boundaries, and you just also have to know what makes you feel good. And your goals. What are your goals? Everybody is different, and I think we all want to be healthy. Nobody doesn't want to be healthy.
Should be a universal goal. So I think, so the first one, mindfulness, we could go on that forever, and that's really, really, really good. And I'm going to probably hashtag that. It's not about perfection, it's about progression, because it's so stinking true. In all aspects of life, it's just this journey.
It is.
So, are there any, what are the next couple steps? So mindfulness is being aware of the situation and the choices we make and all that. And what are, a couple other things that folks could do to kind of, take their health to the next level in terms of their dietary habits and whatnot?
So, I think the next step would be, and again, gosh, this can go in very many directions, but mindfulness is very important. And then getting back to basics as far as balance goes. So balancing our lives is one aspect that, balance in the whole components of nutrition, chiropractic, wellness, mental, physical, all those things are very important. But balance on your plate means you want to get the basic macronutrients. Macronutrients and micronutrients. It's basically gas and oil that we put into our car. Macros being your protein, your fat, and your carbohydrates. And vegetables are technically carbs. So those are foods that we want to enjoy in abundance. And then the fat component, which the reason fat is so important, 60% of your brain's fat, which makes it the fattest part of your whole body. People don't realize your brain only weighs 2 to 4 pounds, yet 60% of it is fat. So you better believe it's important to get the right type of fat. And then finally, protein. We can't, life doesn't exist without protein.
So do you have a favorite top few sources for each of those categories? You said vegetables are a great source for carbs.
Sure.
And I think you had mentioned with fats, olive oils, avocados, almonds, things like that. What about the proteins?
Yeah, protein, there's, you have animal proteins and you have plant proteins. For animal proteins, I think eggs are a great, there's always been that eggs are good, eggs are bad. Eggs are good for you. Quality does matter, especially when it comes to animal products. I do say this, we are what they eat. So if I'm eating animal foods that have been fed hormones and antibiotics and not a really great diet, that also affects us too. So be mindful. It doesn't mean that every single thing you get has to be organic. But with animal foods, if you can try to at least get better sources, and sometimes, yes, organic does matter with the animal products. But eggs are great. And then I love, plant-based proteins. Gosh, there could be like nuts and seeds. There's so many different types, like hemp. Hemp seeds are a great source of protein. There's chia seeds, flaxseed. Those things can be great sources of fat and protein combined.
So I know
plant-based.
I've actually heard of some of those seeds you mentioned.
Yes.
But I think there's a lot of people that may have never heard of those seeds and be like, okay, that sounds great, but
what do I do?
I'm going to have to hire a chef
Yes.
to make me flaxseed something or another.
Absolutely not. And I know, and that's part of, what's great about, I think, entering into a new type of lifestyle of eating is it opens up the door for so many foods that you've never had. And that's why, I do a lot of cooking and cooking demos and recipe development. And the reason I do that and what I love about it is I actually educate and I get people to try things that they've never tried or that they would never buy or even know exist. And people are almost all the time are like, wow, okay, I actually do like this. This is really good.
So where could folks go? Where are a couple of resources, maybe including your own, that they could try and increase their plant-based proteins? Because I think, like you said, most of us understand food-based animal proteins, and we just get it organic if we can and that sort of thing. But if they wanted to kind of change the ratio to get more plant-based protein, what are some of the resources that you found are convenient, or how could they either get in contact with you, or what would the next step be for that?
Sure. I mean, I think there's, plant-based proteins. Yes, I'm always a good resource. Red Dietitians.
That's right. We'll link everything to.
But anyways, I mean, you can get an abundance of a lot of these things, even like Whole Foods. If you go on the Whole Foods website, there's information. Even just Google. Google. Gary Vee, Google.
That's right, just Google it. That's why I said my team here hates me, because they'll ask me a question like, Google it.
Because
hashtag Google it.
You can find anything you want. If you're not sure what to do with it, just say, oh, what do I do with hemp? Hemp seeds. And there's hemp flour, there's hemp seeds, they make hemp milk. And it just gives you a variety of different ways to utilize them.
To be honest, and I'm this is confession time, I didn't know that you got protein out of those nuts and seeds. I always thought that you got more of the oils and fats and whatnot, but I didn't know you got the protein. That's cool.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing, so your website has some recipes though?
I have tons of recipes. Fantastic. And I also, I do a lot on social media, Facebook and also Instagram. I'm constantly posting recipes and information. Eat Real Food PGH. That's my Instagram and Twitter.
Gotcha.
But if you want to check those types of things out, that's great. But in addition, just to throw in there, the reason why plant-based proteins are so great because plant proteins in plant foods contain the phytonutrients. Phyto means plant, so these phytonutrients are plant compounds that are naturally occurring to protect the plant from viruses, bacteria, disease.
Gotcha.
Well, the good news is when we eat them, it does the same thing for us. So it really protects us against disease and prevention and just boost your immune system.
That's fantastic. So I think we've gotten a lot of information today. We're talking just about making healthier choices, being more mindful of that, and just aware that it's a huge impact on our life and our health. Creating balance on our plate, you know, getting away from the chemical stuff and getting to the real stuff, the real macros. You'd mentioned micros in that. Would that be those phytonutrients, or was there anything else that we had left out with that?
So micronutrients are your vitamins and minerals.
Got it, sure.
And those typically are going to come from a lot of the color on your plate.
Gotcha.
But it's also the balance and the combination of the proteins, the fats, and the carbs. So the proteins, fats, and carbs are your macronutrients. It's kind of like the gas you put into your car. It fuels us. It gives us energy. It's where our calories come from. Micronutrients are your vitamins and minerals, which is like the oil that you put into your car. It keeps us running at our best. So you need to get that variety. And just one of those minerals or vitamins being off can just throw off a whole slew of issues in your body. So it is important to get the balance. But unfortunately, sometimes you can't just get it from food alone. Food first. But sometimes, and I recommend a lot getting tested, blood tests.
Sure.
Why gas? Take a test. So.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. And then looking at the big picture when you're saying balance and like a lot of the different therapies and stuff, using the car analogy, my analogy to upper cervical care is like the ignition switch in the car. Like it's like, because you have your brainstem is what just animates this body and keeps it running.
For sure.
But then if you don't have the right fuels and the right intake, it's no good.
Work.
It doesn't
work. It doesn't work altogether.
It doesn't work.
Is. It's connective. It's integrative, and that's the key focus. It's integrative.
Yeah, it's awesome. So hopefully, those of you that were live and those of you who are watching back got some information from this. If you have any more questions, please ask it. And I didn't say this at the front end of this video, but my wife always gets on me on these videos and say, hey, look, people should share this no matter what, because you don't, and it's such a true thing, you don't know what you don't know. And there may be people in your life that need to hear some of these things. They might need that motivation. And if you think it at very least is educational, then please share it. I mean, because it could just hit people where they're at. They may have a need and might be able to enhance their quality of life. So,
yes, I agree.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts for the folks?
Yeah, eat real food. But yes, it really comes down to just be mindful, try to focus on getting real food, whole foods, and just take little steps. You know, babies have to crawl before they walk, so it's baby steps. It doesn't all have to be perfect. It is more, like I said, about the progression. So.
Very cool. Yeah. Thank you, Rita. Appreciate the time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we'll throw Rita's information and her Red Dietitians Company's information on this video. In the future, I'm going to have like someone on our website that'll have kind of our, I don't want to say partners, but just other colleagues and other providers that will have some of that. But right now, we'll put it on this video in later on today. I'll get to it and we'll type it on there. So thanks again, guys. I'm going to end this live session, and we look forward to chatting with you next time. Alrighty. Bye now. Hold on, let's see here. Okay, now we'll say bye.